will be improved by development. But before that, your POI, sir.
So don't you think that the government change is going to affect your rapid economic growth?
Exactly, right? We think that rapid economic growth means achieving a large amount of economic growth within one government term. What that means is that a government change wouldn't necessarily cause a large effect to the economic growth of the country, since most of it has been achieved within one term. Whereas in their situation, where we are trying to take it slow and steady, by virtue of the fact that governments change, economic policies are going to change and economic plans won't be implemented. Moving on to my second argument about the pragmatic aspect of this debate. Now understand that in developing countries, poverty is a problem, but it's not simply poverty created by people being poor, right? People are born poor and these people die poor, but their children are born in poor backgrounds and these children don't have the capacity to go out there and develop themselves and become successful and become rich. What that leads to is a cycle of poverty. People in rural areas becoming poorer and poorer every day, while people in a certain developed area will continue being richer. The prime example of this is Sri Lanka, where you have Colombo as a developed region, but the rest of the country is still developing at a snail's pace. Now, we believe that poverty can be tackled for short term by a proper welfare system, right? What do we mean by a welfare system? We believe that we will be giving a certain degree of money to people who are unemployed to ensure that they are capable of surviving, while funneling most of our resources into development. What that means is that the people who are living under welfare as of status quo will be guaranteed a job in the long term, a job that satisfies their skill set and a job that makes sure that they have a proper quality of life. Otherwise, the cycle of poverty can never be broken. We believe that the government providing employment is a bad idea, because see, since they refuse to give us how exactly they are going to create these jobs, I'll tell you how they are going to create these jobs. First up, they are going to start creating these ineffective departments. They are going to start creating false jobs within departments, where you have a human resources department, you have an administration department, and you have another department that's meant to take care of buildings. Basically, all three of those doing the same job at the same time. What this leads to is a maze of bureaucracy. What this leads to is a bunch of people simply lying around doing nothing, and the government spending taxpayer money on something that doesn't necessarily help the country, right? We believe that creating jobs for people by the government is not the best way to go about it. We believe that the best way to create this is to invest in proper infrastructure that will guarantee jobs for people. We believe that having these multi-layered, unnecessary departments necessarily doesn't help the country at the end of the day. So since we are showing to you that that side opposition is the best side capable of fulfilling the role of the government, and since we are showing to you that side opposition is the best side that can ensure both employment and economic growth, we urge you to side with side opposition.
Honorable judicators, side proposition, side opposition. A very good day to you all. In today's motion, side opposition has made some valid concern. I will be answering them clearly in the latter part of my speech, whereas to the other irrelevant points, I show no importance at all. So the question for us here is, why is rapid economic growth incompatible for a developing nation? This brings me to my substantive delusion, that is rapid economic growth. So as to my first argument, I will be focusing on the political instability of a nation. Yes, a nation's economic and political background are very much connected. Economic policies, trade agreements, international trade relationship, and development projects, all these rely on one fact, which is the political stability of a nation. But the bitter truth in the most of the developing countries is that the political stability is very much poor. Yes, let's say that we are now backed up, let's say we are now backed up by China in the present government. What happens after the government changes is that we will be backed up by India. So our whole economy will also have to realign for that. And also, do you think that we can achieve this immense amount of development within the 5-year span? No. So that's why we say that the government changing will have a very much significant effect on the economic development. And also, I would like to point out that even in the present government itself, we have many pertaining issues. So how is it even possible to think that we can implement such great rapid economic growth projects and will yield their benefits? And the next inevitable truth in developing countries is political corruption. So the rapid economic growth without any social progress lets the great majority of people starve in poverty, whereas the privileged few reap the benefits. This is not what we want here. Take India, for example. The most of the capital gained by the so-called rapid economic growth does not go to people, but to the pockets of the privileged few. This is why we do not want this. We want our nation to benefit. We want every citizen of our nation to benefit, not just a region or not just a few segment of people. On the other hand, if we focus on maintaining high employment opportunities, everyone will have a definite income and they will develop on personal level. this will lead to immense growth in our nation. And that's why we side proposition support on maintaining high employment rather than focusing on rapid economic growth, which is a delusive pathway. By accepting the motion also, we are not giving foreign countries or those privileged people a chance to rob or exploit our resources as foreigners and our people are doing now. So the next problem is we are now only considering GDP and other quantitative measures. Yes, economic development, economic growth are two different aspects, as the Prime Minister said. They are interconnected, but they are different. Yes, statistics state that India and China are growing GDP-wise, but the same statistics state that 21.9% of people in India are starving in poverty and living among various socio-economic problems. Do we call this rapid economic growth? No, my dear friends, this is not growth at all. Increasing the GDP itself by building infrastructure and such is not growth at all. What we call growth here is making every citizen live a happy yet and a healthy life. See what rapid economic growth has brought China with: inflation, pollution, regional inequality, and stagnation of socio-economic development. This is why we stress that no matter how hard we try, we can't achieve economic development by rapid economic growth. And also, as to the opposition who underestimates the benefits of maintaining high employment, even a theoretical analysis in economy itself supports us. Yes, the golden law in economy, which is the Hawkins law, states that a minor decline in unemployment rate by 1% will lead to a yet sustainable and yet a substantial development in GDP by 3%. This golden law is the reason why we side proposition supports this motion, as it delivers a growth not just in economy, but also in all the aspects of development that we need. And also the side opposition has provided us some convincing fact about the rapid economic growth. We agree, but they have not yet addressed our own failures in the past governments. Let me tell you, my friends, Umaoya project, Matala Airport project, Hambantota project, all these have failed due to one reason: rapid implementation without any far sight. These are the proofs that we side proposition have here for you to tell that rapid economic growth is just a delusive pathway. What benefits have these projects brought us? What effects these have brought to economy in our country? Nothing but economic loss and great amount of debt. Yes, and also the side opposition has been very eager to find out how we are going to implement of maintaining high employment. Yes, to them I say, as the Prime Minister said, we are going to scrutinize our educational system to a more skill-based system. Let me point out an example here, my friends. When Korea's government changed and they planned on development, the first thing they did was to scrutinize their educational system to a skill-based system. So by that, they produce many productive and high-quality employees. And by that, by employing them, we can achieve growth in all aspects. And also, we are reducing our unemployment rate, and by that, many problems in our society will come to an end. The other thing that we are planning is to promote self-employment and promote public investors. Yes, many local investors here are not investing in our government or in our nation. Well, they are migrating to other nations or the foreign countries to invest their money. Why? Because our industrial base is very much low. That's why when we promote our local investors or promote self-employment, we can get that immense amount of capital and use that effectively for our country's development. That's all that I have to say here. Thank you. I think by this, we say that this motion should be passed on.
Side opposition had one big problem with how they were going to create jobs. They said they were going to have higher levels of employment. But we didn't really see where these jobs were going to come from, right? Because you need a system where there are jobs that have a need for the society, for people to actually engage in these jobs, right? See, what they mean when they say they are going to create jobs is that the government is going to create this artificial need for jobs. Gavin very clearly explained this to you in his first argument when he talked about how you create different types of ministries, how you create different types of jobs in order to do the same function. And we think that's wrong on a lot of levels, right? Firstly, we tell you how you create these jobs and keep people engaged in them is by paying them, right? And where does the money for this come from? We don't think they come from profits that these jobs make, because at the end of the day, these jobs are not necessary. So we think the money that comes into making sure that these jobs exist comes from things like funds and getting loans from other countries, right? And that's the moment where a country goes into debt. And we think it's extremely ridiculous to blame a country going into debt on simply on rapid economic growth. Before I move into my argument, I have a couple of rebuttals to make, right? First of all, they came and told us about this, how there's a lot of starving people and that only a few people will be better off by this. And they brought up this example of China to back it up, and how rapid economic growth has only contributed to them being polluted. We don't think that's true, right? China is, as of right now, the second biggest economy in the world, and they have enough power as an economy to go toe-to-toe with a developed country like the United States, right? We think that the reason they have been able to get rid of policies like the one-child policy and all of those is because they have enough economic power to make sure that they are a stable country. We don't think that rapid economic growth has, at the end of the day, hurt countries like China. Second of all, they brought up this idea of how, look, they are going to invest in these education systems and they are going to create skill-based people. First of all, we don't see, no sir, first of all, we don't see where the money you are going to get to invest in these sectors, right? Because you need a certain amount of economic growth in order to make sure that you have enough money to invest in these sectors. Secondly, we told you that, look, this idea of investing is not necessary because Sri Lanka already has, developing countries already have extremely good systems of education. Thirdly, we tell you that even if you do manage to develop the skills, which actually happens right now in status quo, we don't think there's any use because there aren't any jobs for these people to engage in. You see people getting PhDs and degrees and all of those in universities, but at the end of the day, they are reduced to doing menial labor, right? Side proposition fails to understand the fact that, look, having higher levels of employment, having a job doesn't mean that your life is actually better off, right? If you are paid only 5 rupees for your job, if you are paid only a very small amount that is not enough for you to live on, we don't think that's something that the government should be actively going out there and promoting. So, we tell you that the counter solution actually works to make sure this doesn't happen, right? Because we tell you providing welfare in that case is a much better option. When a person earns a salary, when a person thinks he has a job, at the end of the day, they don't think they don't need more support, right? That they think that their life is actually as better as it can get. We don't think so. We think one person getting a lot of money and then the taxes coming from that sort of investment will actually be much better in making sure these people are better off. Thirdly, this idea of how you develop farming and all of those in Sri Lanka, right? We don't think that this is essentially the way to go about it, because see, countries are not better off when you base the economies on agricultural systems and all of that. We think what you need to move towards is things like the service sector, and we don't see how side proposition is actually trying to achieve that. Then they came, Gavin brought to you these examples of how there's going to be no opportunities for these people even if they do achieve these higher levels of employment, right? Because they fail to answer the fundamental question of what higher levels of employment meant. They didn't rebut the idea of how government is supposed to facilitate the quality of life of the people, so we think they bought into that. So at the end of the day, they need to prove how higher levels of employment leads to an increased quality of life, and they haven't been able to prove that. All they could come up in response to that was talk about how, look, government changes are going to make sure rapid economic growth is not possible. We think that's extremely ridiculous, and that was an assumption that had literally no logic to it, because at the end of the day, we think rapid economic growth is achieved within a certain government in the same time. So the problem with this is that, look, at the end of the day, the countries that are not developed get exploited. That is how the hierarchy in the world works as of right now. Why are they more likely to be exploited? Because they don't have the economy, they don't have the funds to make sure that their people are better off, right? So they reveal their weaknesses, which allows them to be exploited. Countries like Afghanistan, countries like Sri Lanka right now, where they are being fought over by superpowers like the USA and China, right? We think the reason you can't do this is because because you are always in debt to these people. You always need the support of these people. At the end of the day, to avoid that, you need to be developed. You need to make sure you have an economy that can sustain your people. You don't need to rely on other different people. Even if everything they say works out and you do get this amount of people who are educated, who are skilled, and they manage to change the system of how education works, we don't think that at the end of the day you are solving the core problem of making sure that you have enough money circulating around to make sure that people in general have a better life. And because of that, we think you should side with side opposition. Thank you.
Now we call upon the government rep to deliver his case.
Sustainable development is the pathway to the future we want for all. It offers in all framework to generate economic growth, achieve social justice, exercise environmental stewardship, and strengthen governance. This is where we stand in this debate. So, ladies and gentlemen, what happened in this total debate was very funny. We wanted to develop the country, they wanted to decorate the country. This is how I see this debate, as these two are opposite poles of reality. What we are put forwarding is reality. What they told is assumptions, and they didn't even say how the rapid economy is going to happen. They complained us that how we are going to employ, and they didn't provide a clear solution how we are going to rapidly increase our economy. So, where do we live? We live in a country with 21.9 youth unemployed, where 3,58,000 people are unemployed, 11.3 of them are educated. With all these problems in hand, what is the solution given by the side opposition? They wanted to hide everything just to show the global titans that we are developed, just to please the global titans. And I don't see the real depth of government, and I don't really see how the government works. So we as the government should think in the perspective of the people. We believe in our people. And let me show how we are going to create this employment opportunities. First, the fiscal policy. We really want to use the fiscal policy as a key to move forward and increase our employing opportunities. And they came here and told that we are not giving a clear solution on how we are going to give the opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, we have clearly stated in the definitions of high level of employment that this high level of employment includes creating opportunities, ladies and gentlemen. So, this leads to my three main clash points, that are the economic growth versus economic development, second, rapid economy versus sustainable economy, global trend versus our solution to this problem. Ladies and gentlemen, I can see in your eyes that you are so tired of hearing these two words, economic development and economic growth. The reason why we are emphasizing this point is because of the misconception that side opposition have. They came here and contradict these two words, the growth and development of our country. We have clearly told in our first speech that a growth is just a quantitative measure of a country, where the development includes quality and quantity of a country. Sorry, sir. So this is the main problem that we see in this debate, where they came here and told about people welfare. How is that possible for a rapid economic growth where people are just yawning and sitting in their houses doing nothing? I don't see the reality, and I don't see the practicality of their solution. So, okay, let's come to their world of fantasy, where rapid economic growth is going to happen in 5 years. That from a government period, that the country is going to change into a developed country in 5 years, ladies and gentlemen. How is that possible? Let me show you with two main reasons why it is not possible. First one, the timeline issue. The topic suggests rapid, ladies and gentlemen. It is rapid. So it should take place in a short period of time. For the conversion of growth into development, we need a specific amount of time that we don't have as a developed countries. As our second speaker told, the corruptive political stability of our country. With all these corruptions, we have to agree the bitter truth that we as Sri Lanka, a developing country, has political instability. With all these problems, how can you develop a country in 5 years? How is that even possible? The second problem which we see is the unemployment is a barrier. They came here and gave a solution to close the bars, where my first speaker told that about drug trafficking and alcohol problem, and they told to close the bars. How is that even relevant, ladies and gentlemen? The root cause for all of these antisocial activity is unemployment. The reason why people drug traffic, the alcohol and all other social problems depend on the main factor of unemployment. That is a matured argument that we really want to put forward. So, let me clear this out. The main thing, the port city, let me show you with example. What happened in port city? Sometimes when I go in the roads of Goldface, I feel whether I'm in Sri Lanka. I see more Chinese than Sri Lankans in Goldface roads. And how can you just simply say that rapid economic growth is going to give employment to Sri Lankans, where you see lots of Chinese in the project of Port City? So moving to my next point, the rapid economy versus sustainable economy. Ladies and gentlemen, rapid economy is just like a man walking in a tall building in a robe, where one bad move will make your country the poorest country in the world. But what we suggest is a slow but steady, and it is going to be a long-lasting opportunity to our people. What they told is this rapid economic growth is going to give the people employment. The question is, for how long? For how long they are going to be employed?